Welcome to the Nucleus podcast. This week, we are looking at the nuclear update for the week ending June 29th, 2026. And the big topic is hard to miss. Nuclear power is being pulled into the center of the artificial intelligence electricity story. This week's news is packed with small modular reactors, advanced nuclear, data centers, government financing, and a fair amount of investor enthusiasm. But I want to start with the obvious question. Are we looking at a genuine nuclear renaissance, or just a market narrative that has found a very convenient power source?
It is both, and that is what makes it interesting. Sentiment this week shows a real shift in demand. Artificial intelligence data centers are being described as consuming as much electricity as mid-sized cities, and the bottleneck behind the artificial intelligence boom is said to have moved from chips to power. That is a serious commercial driver, but the investment narrative is moving faster than deployment. Small modular reactors and microreactors are being talked about as structural answers, yet many of the projects in the update are still at proposal, financing, licensing, siting, or early development stage. From a lawyer's perspective, that gap between market excitement and project reality is where most of the risk lives.
That gap really stood out to me. On one hand, we have this repeated idea that conventional large nuclear projects have been associated with decades of cost overruns. And on the other hand, small modular reactors are being presented as a potential structural answer, reliable power at a scale suited to the demand being discussed, including data centers. But is the legal and delivery picture actually simpler because the reactor is smaller?
Not necessarily. The legal and delivery picture does not become simple just because the reactors are smaller. What it does show is that many advanced nuclear items remain tied to proposals, licensing reviews, siting agreements, financing, and early deployment plans. The Cottam example illustrates that. Holtec and EDF submitted a proposal for SMR 300 small modular reactors at Cottam in Nottinghamshire, at a former coal-fired power plant site, to provide power to new data centres. The partners also said the project would enable foreign direct investment into the UK. So the story is not just a reactor design, it is also a site, data centre demand and investment story.
Cottam feels like one of the week's central stories. The Telegraph says 4 mini-nuclear reactors are planned for Nottinghamshire, producing 1.3 gigawatts, enough to power around 1.2 million homes. Construction Review Online frames it as part of Britain's advanced nuclear framework, potentially turning the former coal site into one of the country's most important new nuclear power locations. And then the data centre angle comes in, which changes the whole feel of it. It is not just national energy policy, it is industrial strategy.
Exactly. Holtec and EDF's SMR 300 proposal is intended to provide power to new data centers. That data center element matters because it links the nuclear proposal directly to electricity demand from artificial intelligence infrastructure. But the stories stop short of saying how the power would be contracted or who would take delay or demand risk. So, commercially, it is a strong signal rather than a complete project structure.
And the United Kingdom thread goes beyond Cottam. Rolls-Royce appears again and again. Rolls-Royce's small modular reactor program is attracting investors interested in artificial intelligence infrastructure. Tufan Ergin-Bilgic has described the global market as worth more than $1 trillion. But there is also the Telegraph warning that the contract to build small modular reactors may not always mean manufacturing jobs in the United Kingdom. That is quite a sharp political and commercial caveat.
It is. Rolls-Royce is attracting attention because its small modular reactor program adds another layer to the artificial intelligence infrastructure story. But the Telegraph also says the contract to build small modular reactors may not always mean manufacturing jobs in the UK. So the political promise of a homegrown nuclear age and the commercial reality of where work is carried out may not be the same thing.
There is a tension there, is there not? The same small modular reactor can be marketed as a national industrial project, an export platform, a data center power solution, and a financial growth story. Those are not always aligned.
They are often aligned at the press release stage. They become less aligned when the project is late, costs rise, interest rates bite, or a supply chain decision has to be made. A government may want jobs in Anglesey. Investors may want margin. A data center customer may want certainty of supply by a fixed date. A reactor vendor may want standardization and global supply flexibility. Those competing objectives need hard-edged contracts, not slogans.
The United States side of the market feels even more aggressively tied to artificial intelligence. Google has agreements with Kairos Power for small modular reactors. Meta has pursued similar nuclear partnerships and issued a request for proposals for new power options. Facilities are being co-located with the Susquehanna Nuclear Station in Pennsylvania. Is this now the model? Technology companies becoming anchor customers for nuclear?
That is the direction of travel this week. Anchor demand is critical because nuclear needs long horizons. If hyperscale data center operators can sign credible long-term commitments, they may help projects get financed. But it also changes the negotiation dynamic. These technology companies will be sophisticated buyers. They will want performance guarantees, delivery milestones, pricing protections, remedies for delay, and options if regulatory approvals do not arrive. Nuclear developers, especially early-stage ones, cannot promise too much too early without creating liabilities they cannot absorb.
That is where I found the investor coverage slightly breathless. Nano Nuclear Energy, X Energy and Amazon are highlighted. Oklo is discussed as a higher-risk early-stage developer focused on small modular reactors and recycled fuel technology. Deep Fission announces letters relating to a customer pipeline of up to 18.5 gigawatts. NewCube is going public through a business combination. There is a lot of market activity, but pipeline is not the same as built capacity.
Correct. A letter, a pipeline, a proposal, a framework agreement, a request for proposals, and a final investment decision are very different things. Lawyers spend a lot of time making sure clients do not confuse them. The press this week gives several examples of momentum, but also of immaturity. Nano Nuclear Energy expects construction on its first reactor to begin in late 2027. Its Coronos micro-modular reactor program is moving into formal review activity with the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, with the process expected to begin in the second half of 2027. That is progress, but it is not near-term power on the grid.
And yet there is real policy support. The United States Department of Energy appears repeatedly. There is the Nuclear Energy Launchpad USA program, giving access to federal infrastructure and specialized technical expertise. There is work on nearly 20 metric tons of surplus plutonium materials potentially being transformed into advanced nuclear fuel. And then there is the $17.5 billion conditional financing to support Westinghouse reactor deployment and accelerate 10 large commercial reactors. That is not just hype.
No, that is substantial. Government financing can change the economics of nuclear. But conditional is the key word on the $17.5 billion financing. The source describes a conditional commitment and a loan program intended to support Westinghouse reactor deployment and accelerate 10 large commercial reactors. That is powerful policy support, but it is not the same as saying the money is moving unconditionally or that the reactors are already built.
The fuel point is also interesting. We often talk about reactors as if the machine is the whole story, but this week's news touches on advanced fuels, high-assay, low-enriched uranium, thorium from monazite ores and rare earth element tailings, and the Centrus and Oklo fuel agreement in Piketon, positioning southern Ohio as an advanced nuclear energy hub. Is fuel becoming one of the main legal bottlenecks?
It is certainly one of the significant issues. The news this week points to advanced nuclear fuel, specialized fuels such as high-assay, low-enriched uranium, licensing and record-keeping changes for advanced nuclear fuel infrastructure, and even work on whether surplus plutonium could be transformed into advanced nuclear fuel. The Centrus and Oklo agreement is significant because it links fuel production, reactor deployment, customer demand, and construction planning, with operations expected to begin in 2029. That integrated structure is what the sector needs, but every link in that chain has to hold.
There is a military thread too. The United States Army discussion of Janus says it is intended to move advanced nuclear energy from individual science projects towards a commercial product that can support military needs. Another story says military microreactors may help lead the nuclear energy revolution, with the military investing billions. How should we understand that?
Defense demand can accelerate attention because the source frames Janus around installation resilience and moving advanced nuclear energy towards a commercial product that can support military needs. Another piece says the military is investing billions in microreactors and could help shape the future of nuclear energy, but that still does not prove civilian deployment on its own. It shows a potentially important early market, while the wider commercial case still depends on reactor deployment, fuel, infrastructure, and customer demand all lining up.
The global sweep in the press this week is striking. Canada wants up to 10 new large reactors over the next 15 years, a modernized, cost-competitive CANDU design by 2030, more reactor exports, and doubled uranium exports. Turkey's Akkuyu nuclear power plant has completed construction work on its first unit and moved into the final phase before launch. India's Tarapur atomic power station has resumed full operations after modernization. South Korea is exploring solar and nuclear investment in Zambia. Russia and Laos signed a nuclear cooperation agreement. It is not just a United States and United Kingdom story.
That is right. Nuclear is being discussed as part of energy security, digital infrastructure, industrial development, and international cooperation. The United Arab Emirates and Korea reaffirmed cooperation, with the Baraka nuclear energy plant described as a landmark achievement. Hyundai Engineering and Construction is seeking Dutch nuclear contracts. Vedanta Power in India is assessing hydro, battery storage, and nuclear energy. These are signs of a broad market, but also of projects at very different stages and in very different national settings.
This week also reminds us that nuclear is not immune from the physical world. The Guardian reports extreme heat in Europe, the United Kingdom hitting a new June record, France shutting down nuclear reactors, and deaths rising across the continent. That complicates the clean, reliable baseload story.
It does. Nuclear may be part of the low-carbon power answer, but the source also records extreme heat in Europe, France shutting down nuclear reactors, and deaths rising across the continent. That at least qualifies any simple reliability narrative. The stronger nuclear argument is not that it is immune from real-world conditions. It is that it may provide firm low-carbon power if the engineering, regulation, siting, and economics are properly handled.
And then there is the geopolitical noise around Iran. The press this week contains conflicting reports. United States Vice President J.D. Vance said Iran had agreed to allow nuclear inspectors back in after talks in Switzerland, while Iran's foreign ministry denied United States assertions that inspectors would be allowed into the country. Rafael Mariano Grossi, head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, indicated inspectors would be granted access. That is a reminder that nuclear in the news is never just power generation.
Precisely. Civil nuclear, military nuclear, safeguards, sanctions, oil markets, and regional security can all collide. For commercial nuclear investors, that background matters because public perception, sanctions risk, supply chain controls, and international cooperation frameworks can shift quickly. The nuclear growth story is strong, but it sits in a world where nuclear remains politically sensitive.
Before we close, let me test the mood. If you were advising a board that had read this week's update and wanted to invest, partner, or procure power from advanced nuclear, what would you tell them?
I would say separate the excitement from the executable. First, identify whether you are looking at operating assets, licensed projects, proposed sites, early-stage designs, or merely market exposure. Second, test the fuel supply and regulatory pathway. Third, do not treat data center demand as a substitute for bankable contracts. Fourth, watch government support carefully, because it is powerful but conditional. And fifth, assume that the winners will be those who can integrate technology, licensing, construction, fuel, customers, and capital into one credible delivery plan.
My takeaways are that small modular reactors are becoming the language of the artificial intelligence power boom. Cottam is the key United Kingdom proposal to watch. United States policy support is becoming more concrete, and investor enthusiasm is real but uneven. The week feels full of momentum, but not yet full of certainty.
That is the right balance. The market sentiment beat for the week is data center-centric and selectively bullish. Overall sentiment is positive, but with clear execution risk. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.